To make real food, you need a great recipe, passed down from generation to generation. Welcome to Real Food, Real Kitchens, the show that goes into real kitchens of everyday people to tell the story of a dish and the families and cultures that bring it to life.
My name is Christy, and this is my real recipe for my grandmother's peanut butter pie.
You can get this recipe and many more by visiting realfoodrealkitchens.com.
The pie we're going to make today, I learned from my grandmother, my father's mother, and she lived up near Alachua, Florida, which is outside of Gainesville, and she's made this pie as long as I can remember. And I asked my dad how long my grandma had been making this pie, and he said at least since the 60s, or at least as long as he can remember. And she would make it for pretty much every time our family got together. It's a very easy recipe that doesn't use a lot of weird ingredients, so you can just pull stuff right out of the pantry and go with it. But it's really thick cooked custard, and it's got kind of a light peanut butter taste, but it's definitely not a light pie. It's definitely a heavy pie, but the peanut butter is not too strong. But I've always really liked it, and it always makes me remember my grandmother. So my grandma always made 2 pies at a time. Because she always said it was just as much work to make 2 as it was 1, so she might as well make 2. Usually she kept 1 and gave 1 away. So I've got 2 pre-made pie crusts. Once these came out, she decided there was no reason to make pie crust anymore, so she always just bought them on sale and had them in the freezer. And so you just take it and just kind of prick the bottom of it, because we're going to pre-bake these. And I put them on a pan just because sometimes I feel like the little middle thing is a little wobbly. And my oven is preheated to the directions that were on the pre-made pie mix, or pie crust. I first learned to make this pie when I would visit my grandmother when I was in college. I went to the University of Florida in Gainesville, and since she lived only about half an hour away, I would go visit pretty much every weekend. And she would often make this recipe for church Sunday on the grounds, and so I would help her make it on Saturday for Sunday church. So I helped her make it then, and that's when I first started learning how to make this pie. Okay, so now we're gonna make the peanut butter part of the recipe. It's not a super strong peanut butter flavor. So you're gonna take, so we're doing 2 of them. So we're going to take 2 cups of powdered sugar. And we don't have to sift it or anything like that because we're going to mash it up. You just want it pretty close. So 2 cups of that. And then we're going to do 1 cup of smooth peanut butter. You should use the smooth because I think the crunchy would be weird. And I think it would be hard to get it mixed in with the powdered sugar. Fill it up like that, and then use a plastic spatula and really just work on getting it back out. So that's pretty good. Then you take a fork and you mash it into the powdered sugar. And she always said till it was a consistency of biscuit mix. I never understood what that meant, but that's what she always said. She made this recipe for everything. She would do it for Sunday on the grounds at church. She would make it for Thanksgiving. She would make it for Christmas. And I think part of the reason why she made it so frequently is that she had all these ingredients in her kitchen. She didn't have to go out and buy something special. In fact, when I went to go look for it, the only thing I had to go buy today was a pie crust. I had everything else already in the cabinet. So it's an easy recipe and it's not an expensive recipe. but she was known for it. My dad said that he knows she made it at least since the 60s. So see, it's just all mixed up. In addition to the peanut butter pie, some of my favorites that she made were homemade biscuits. She also made a great strawberry cake that was my great-grandmother's recipe. And then she also made really, really good fried okra and squash. So, while we're waiting for our pie crust, we're gonna go ahead and work on the filling, which we have to scald some milk for it. In order to scald milk, you're supposed to use a double boiler. I don't have a double boiler. My grandma didn't have a double boiler. She always just stacked one pan inside of another one. So the bottom one has boiling water in it, and then we have a top pan that fits pretty nice inside, and you want to kind of push it down and make sure it doesn't overflow, but that the water's coming up the sides. So we're going to use 4 cups of milk. And remember, we're doing this for 2 pies, not 1, so I've gone ahead and doubled everything today. So you don't really have to stir very often. It just is going to naturally heat up, and it'll be scalded when you start to see some little bubbles right on the side. So it's just, you don't want it to actually boil. It just is starting to get some little bubbles on the side. So we're going to use 1/2 cup cornstarch. I've always found that cornstarch seems to be incredibly messy. 1 1/3 cup of sugar. So this is the 1/3 cup. 2, 3, 4. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So we're just going to stir it to try to break up any of those lumps from the cornstarch. This is the first time I've made it in a while. She passed away a few years ago, and I don't think anybody in my family has made it since she died. I made it a few times when I was in college, but I haven't made it since then. So this will be the first time in a while that I've made it, but I thought for this Thanksgiving that it would be a perfect celebration to bring back some of those home flavors that we always had growing up when our family would get together. This will be the first Thanksgiving in several years that my whole extended family are getting together, so I thought it would be perfect to have my grandmother's pie there. I'm terrible at separating eggs, so I have to do it with my hands. I can't do that whole eggshell thing. You need to do them one at a time, because if you get any yolk at all in your egg whites, your meringue will not work. If you have a little egg white in your yolk, that's fine. You just don't want any yolk in your egg white. But you always should do them individually, because invariably the last one, the yolk will break. And if you're doing it over your egg white, then you got to start over. We're going to go ahead and beat these 6 eggs, and we're going to add them. We're going to add a little bit of this hot milk mixture to the eggs. Now the reason you want to do just a little bit at a time is you don't want to heat up those eggs too fast, or you end up with scrambled eggs. So by adding just a little at a time, you'll slowly heat it up. Probably just a little more. So then we're just going to add this in here. just mix it up real good. So you can see it's that beautiful custardy yellow. So now we're gonna put this back in the double boiler. And I hope it fits. It's usually pretty close. And now you're gonna cook this real slow until it gets thick. That cornstarch will do its magic. And you'll just stir it occasionally. So while that's heating up, I'm gonna go ahead and put some of that peanut butter mixture in these pie crusts while we're waiting on that. So we have that peanut butter powder, and you're gonna put about half of it in the bottom of the crust. So see, I have about half left. So it's gonna seem a little thick, but when you pour the custard over it, it kind of gels into this. And it kind of ties it all together, and I think it even melts the peanut butter a little bit. So it's gonna fill the pie crust about halfway. And then we're gonna save the rest of this for after we do the meringue. Then we'll put a little more peanut butter on the top. So you have peanut butter on the bottom, peanut butter on the top. The filling is about ready. It's getting really thick. So you can start to see stir marks staying in it. And it just feels like really watery pudding, but it is thick. So we'll go ahead and pull that off. So we're going to add 1/4 cup of butter and half a teaspoon of vanilla. For a few years, our family had just gone off and had dinner somewhere where it was prepared for us, but I just felt like it was missing that special touch that made our family dinner. So I'm looking forward to sharing this recipe and many others with my own children as they join in our family traditions. And I think that it just makes that 1 or 2 meals a year that very special, unique thing that's only to our family, that no one else gets to have. And I truly feel that that's very special to have those family recipes that you use again and again that always make you think of your family and your grandma.
You can get this recipe and many more by visiting realfoodrealkitchens.com. The Real Food, Real Kitchens New York Cookbook and Real Food, Real Kitchens Quarterly Magazine are both available on realfoodrealkitchens.com. To order, click on the pantry section of the website to find all types of Real Food, Real Kitchens merchandise.